Are you sitting comfortably?
Good afternoon.
So great.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a long time, but you've
One time getting here, just arrived.
You've resurrected Jilted John is back.
Yes, Jilted John is on tonight at 7:10 in the Empress. Is it the Empress Ballroom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
hope you're all coming. Yay. Great.
So why have you gone back to Jilted John after decades?
38 years.
38 years, yeah.
Not that long compared to some of the people here. Well, because I was approached to the point of being pestered by somebody from Rebellion for a few years, actually.
Oh, this is a Rebellion coup?
Yeah. And I came up last year and had a look, and I thought, what a lovely vibe, and I just thought I could bring my son up and my wife and have a little holiday and do a gig. But then I had to get a band together because the guys that I worked with originally are either not talking to me or not contactable. And so I've got a fantastic band that even better than original, dare I say. And what was difficult was I was suddenly going from doing a couple of numbers, including the hit Jilted John, which is always known as Gordon is a Moron, but it was never called that, so it's called Jilted John by Jilted John. We were being very minimalist there. But I did it last at the Big Chill in 2008. We did 20 minutes, so or 15 even. But they wanted half an hour, and suddenly that's like a big seismic shift, so we had to rehearse a lot of the album, True Love Stories. And we put in a couple of new ones.
This is interesting because I mean, the thing about Jilted John, I mean, it's a fantastic record. It's also it's like a story, isn't it? So you've got this character, a bit of a loser kind of character, and you upgrade it years later. So how do you write the songs? What are two new songs? You're revisiting like a mature version of this character, or is it still the same?
Well, you've slightly caught me out now because they're not brand new. One was actually written in 79, but it never really saw the light of day.
That's newer.
Yeah. But it was, for those aficionados out there, it was on the Rabid compilation, The Crap Stops Here, which was all Rabid Records bands putting one track on it. And so that's on it. And also there was a track we did about Keira Knightley, Eat Your Dinner, which did very well on the Big Chill. It's a fun track, so not to be taken seriously, but we're doing that again tonight as well. And I have done the single at sort of parties and charity events on and off in the last 20 years. After the record, I became a little bit, probably did affect me having a big hit. It was a massive hit. And I went back to drama school. I went from kissing Debbie Harry on top of the pops to wearing a papier-mâché mask back at college, standing in a loincloth, doing a Greek tragedy. Yeah. And I felt,
this isn't right. Long way down the showbiz, isn't it?
I've made a mistake, but I stuck at it and went into acting, but always still carried on writing songs. But I kind of knew that the Jilted John, or it certainly felt like it at that stage, that it was just a one-hit thing. And the album was too different from the single to really make it. I kind of knew it when we put it out. People are going to listen to it and be baffled. It doesn't sound like the single, so it didn't do that well. But now I feel a bit differently because revisiting those songs all these years later, there's some good songs there, and other people have said it over the years, and I kind of never realised it. And so approaching them as a man of 57 with guys in my band at a similar age, and you're playing an 18-year-old's music, and it's me. It's kind of sweet. It's kind of nice, and I'm enjoying it.
And how much of Jilted John is actually you? Is it when you're an actor, you can put a lot of yourself in a character or create a character as part of you, or is it just a completely different character?
No, I think there is part of me. I mean, there's a song called the Paperboy song, which, if anyone knows that from the album, that's completely based on Actually, I didn't get up at 6:30 and have 2 Weetabix, but I did get up. I used to get up quite late, but you know, and I didn't nick any penny chews and bubbly before I went to usually nick some penny chews and bubbly. That's a terrible rhyme, but the impetus of it was from my life, and also Baz's party. That was based on my first experiences of those sort of 14, 15-year-old parties where you get pissed on woodpecker cider, and you end up all on your own with your friend whose party is he's throwing up in the toilet. So that, but the rest, all Karen running away and John, actually that was based on my sister running away.
So it's quite.
So it is quite based on my life.
You, yeah.
I didn't just realise. Yeah.
How much of you is actually Graham Fellows then?
Well, we got into trouble because I started, the genesis of Jill to John, the track, is I was at drama school, sitting on an old sofa like this, it's a bit newer, but with an old acoustic guitar that was lying around. And I just tuned it into a straight chord, a major chord, and put my finger across and got that riff, do, 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 do. And then I wrote the song as a pastiche of punk. To some extent, that's how it started, but then it sort of developed to something a bit better than that. And I was, so that's how it started. I've forgotten the question.
Well, I was just talk about how much you used Jill John, what we got there. So, this is the period of the late 70s when Manchester's got this really kind of vibrant music scene. But you're on the edge of this, aren't you? You're at drama college in Manchester, aren't you? But you're working with some of the key people. You're working with Martin Hannett, aren't you? And so you kind of got one foot in this kind of scene. I mean, what was it like at that time in Manchester?
Well, I think people were stumbling about a bit, you know, and my record company were sort of, they did a lot of fly posting and that kind of financed the records, I think. But they had some interesting people, Ray with the Ed Banger and the Nosebleeds, Slaughter and the Dogs, who were already starting to make it. I think Slaughter and the Dogs had just been signed to a major label, and, so you didn't see them, but you saw Ed Banger occasionally, and John Cooper Clarke was just starting to take off. So the irony is I made a cheap demo in Sale in Manchester and took it to a record shop, Pandemonium Records, on Lackland Lane, West Italy. And it all came about through total naivety. I said to the guy, I've got to tape it. Do you know any punk record labels? And he said, oh, I know 2, Stiff and Raven. Now, Stiff are down in London, it's quite a long way. Why don't you just walk up the road to Withington, to Raven Records? So I did, I just took the tape, walked up, knocked on the door. They said, come in. Yeah. Obviously, it was. Yeah. And then I nearly slipped it to someone else. And then we put the tape on. It was an old-fashioned reel-to-reel bit of tape, and they said, "Oh, this is interesting. Can you leave the tape with us?" I said, "No, I'm going to take it home, but I'll come back another day with it." And I think that's when Martin Hannett was there the next time, and we listened to it again. And then they said, "Yeah, let's do it."
So Martin Hannett was he sort of like their house producer for the label? He was,
yeah, and I think Tosh Ryan Carter, the boss, the man behind Raven Records, always feel that he was nicked by Tony Wilson for Factory Records, which I think is true, really. Because Martin produced Spiral Scratch, of course, the first Buzzcocks EP, and that, I think I'm right in saying, came out through. It was on their own label, wasn't it? New Hall. But it was distributed through Raven, I think. There are lots of copies of it lying around.
Well, Tosh used to run the Manchester music scene, didn't he? He was a fly post guy.
But he was fantastic. His enthusiasm was amazing, and he was so supportive. And he was a pretty good saxophonist as well in his band, Prime Time Suckers.
So what was it like working with Martin Hannett at that time?
Well,
you get a lot of legendary stories about
Martin Hannett. I mean, when I saw the 24-hour Party People, I laughed, the film about the Hacienda, because I just didn't recognise Martin at all. He was quite posh, and he was quite, well, no, he wasn't posh. He was very polite, and you could say effective, but he was just sort of, well, I could do an impression of him, but he was just sort of like that, sort of very, it's such quite a good sound, isn't it? Let's muck around. He was into sort of shocking people by getting loud noises out of the desk. And, but I think he took too many drugs. But apart from that, I think he was a really nice bloke and very inventive. It took a long time to get there sometimes, I think. I remember when we did the album, we were supposed to get there for 6 in the evening, which seemed quite late to me, and then we'd start working about 11, half 11 at night. He was
quite nocturnal, wasn't he?
I mean, with the single, we rehearsed, just going back, Ravid said, let's do the single, so we started rehearsing, we got a little band, they gave me a band, and I used to go around after college and rehearse the song and the B-side, and we just go and study. And though that was briefly became the A-side, but until John Peel started playing Jilted John, I think that was the right decision. But when we went into the studio to record it, the finished thing, Martin just invented quite a few things on the night. You know, the hooky bass riff.
Did he play that?
He came up with that. That wasn't on until the very night of.
He was a bass player, wasn't he, Martin?
Well, he didn't play it, but he just said, "Why don't we have that?"
Yeah.
And the chorus of voices coming in saying, "Yeah, it's not fair," sort of fading in. That was his idea. So, you know, he came up with a lot of icing on the cake.
So it's not like he's just there, he's actually quite an important part of this record,
Yeah, he was brilliant, yeah.
So when you're creating the character Jilted John, I mean, do you have an idea in your head what you're creating? I mean, it's great, you know, like the little anorak, the whole look. It just looked like completely lost on TV. I mean, was it something gradually developed, or was it something that was created?
I think the correct way to develop a character, if you're doing a character that's a bit flamboyant or in any way different to yourself, you should probably, well, I guess you try things out, but at some point you make a decision. This is his name, this is how he dresses. But with all the characters I've done, certainly with the ones that have been successful, Jilted John and John Shuttleworth, I've just stumbled completely into it and not really knowing what I was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, John Shuttleworth, I wouldn't have even called him John if I thought he was going to have legs, because, you know, there's a confusion there with Jilted John. But I did John Shuttleworth as a spoof tape for a friend in the music business one night. And at that point, John even played the guitar. It wasn't, and then it was when I went out with a girl whose dad had a keyboard that was like John Shuttleworth. It was very funny watching him play it.
Yeah.
That's when I got the idea for the keyboard. So things in life influenced me with those characters. Jilted John was originally called John Thomas, and then but then I was picking up on, there's quite a lot of records by people like Reckless Eric. There was some called Hapless Hugh. Remember seeing that name? Anyone remember Hapless Hugh? No.
This is getting really obscure.
But who else is there? There's a few other.
There's quite a lot of interesting kind of eccentrics in that kind of period, weren't there? Like Stiff Records had quite a lot. But again, like going back to Manchester, there's quite a lot in Manchester. You know, like you were saying before, John Cooper Clarke, and then eventually Frank Sidebottom. And it seems to be like something very kind of Manchester. It's kind of people like 5-6 years older who never seem to fit in anywhere, but do these kind of amazing things.
Frank Sidebottom is I knew very well. Chris Seavey, the songwriter who signed to Raz Records, which was the Ravid Records evolved into Raz Records. And Tosh basically put all the money from my hit, because ours was the only big hit that really for Ravid, put it into Chris Seavey's songwriting career, which then didn't happen, but then he, through sheer frustration, put on a papier-mâché head and created Frank Sidebottom.
This is revenge.
So I feel I've had a hand in Frank Sidebottom's evolution, so I don't feel too bad in adopting a name that is slightly similar, John Shuttleworth.
Yeah.
I mean, that's subliminal, by the way. I didn't, I knew he was doing that, but I kind of wasn't trying to copy him. But it's funny how things are reciprocated in any art form, isn't it? You sort of nick things, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously.
Yeah. But there's this interesting thing with John Shuttleworth, because you were playing the part of a far older person when you were younger.
Yeah.
And now you've gone back to Jilted John and you're playing the part of a far younger person, now you're older. I mean, it's that. Is this another kind of underlying concept, or is it just the way it just sort of
No,
happens?
I think I'm glad you noticed that because I've noticed it that it's very ironic that I'm now here in my late 50s about to sort of play an 18-year-old, though I won't be. I'm not going to embarrass myself to imitate an 18-year-old. I'm going to sort of. It's Jilted John that's now. It's more about the songs, really. That's and the music. But yeah, I have now caught up John Shuttleworth because when I started, I've been doing John Shuttleworth for actually over 30 years. I was 25 when I did the first tape, and I had him 46, 47. Now he's about 58, 59. So 30 years, he's aged 12 years. And I have slight problems. He's got 2 teenage kids.
Yeah.
They're still in the teens. So it's all, everything's gone really strange. He's got a West Highland Terrier that must be 40.
But does it have to be that accurate?
Sorry? Still got the Austin Ambassador, yeah. But would he really? I mean, that's getting on a bit, isn't it?
I mean, speak about that. I mean, with Jill John. I mean, obviously, he's doing his gig tonight. But can you update that character, or is he a character frozen in time? Is he an 18-year-old from the late 70s? I mean, you can revisit it now and then as a little picture of that period, or is it somebody you can actually bring all up to date?
I don't know. I don't think we've evolved it too much. I think you'll agree from what you see tonight. But it's more about the music. It's playing. We did a tryout gig in Brixton, and it seemed to, people afterwards said, oh, you just put a smile on my face. You brought back the memories from that time. Mm-hmm. And I think in a way, that's one of the things that Rebellion's great at doing, isn't it? It's sort of people are trying to tap into something either from their own youth or something that they perhaps just missed and want a part of. But that's a good question. I mean, if we're all having such a good time doing this, and if it goes well and we're enjoying it and people want to see it, then we might do some more and evolve it.
So you could actually write new songs?
I think so, yeah. I think we might have to.
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of interesting to know which period it would be,
Yeah, I'm not really interested in sort of dressing down and playing an 18-year-old kid. No, it would be more... I always remember watching Chris Difford from Squeeze a couple of years ago. He played a charity gig I was doing, and I asked him to play Up the Junction, which he doesn't even sing. Glenn Tilbrook sings it, but it's one of my favourite songs. It's the song I always wish I'd written. Though I have to say I rhymed Smelly and Telly before they did. In Going Steady. And I pointed that out to him, and he conceded it.
Did he steal it off you?
Well, it was sitting there, wasn't it? Smelly and Telly. No one did it until I did it. And then he did it the year later with Up the Junction. Yeah. Anyway, he just sang it on an acoustic guitar, and he's not a great guitarist by his own admission. And he's not a great singer. But when you've got a good song, it's like...
Has its own magic.
It just takes you away, doesn't it? It's like... And that's why people can sit pissed singing songs and everyone gets moved, because it's about the song.
Which you have like one massive hit record, which is kind of goes on and on, doesn't it? Even like 30 years later, you still hear it. I mean, I remember when it came out, and it took a long time to become a hit, didn't it? I remember at the time at school, the record was around, and you hear it. It's a very culty record. And then suddenly, a few months later, it was like number 5 in the charts.
Number 4?
Number 4? Oh, yeah, sorry. Right. So, I mean, it must be like quite a surprise for something like that to take off, especially when this is like it's an act, isn't it? It's not like a band. It's not like you're striving to have a massive success. You're just making a brilliant record, but it's slightly detached, isn't it? And suddenly it's a hit. I mean, what was that like for that to happen?
Well, it's to some extent. I think that's why I'm amazed I'm here, because it's like, Jilted John isn't like really the genuine article. Let's be honest, he's a Ponzi drama student who decided to do a punk pastiche, and then it ends up being one of the biggest punk records of all time. But in a way, that is the whole point of punk, isn't it? It's like anything goes. It's sort of, because I couldn't even play the guitar at all, and I've learned, but the musical structure of that song